Go, Andy. Go, Andy. Go, Andy. Go, Andy. Go, go. Yay! What's up, y'all? Hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing good. Thank you so much for checking out this video, taking time out of your day, your personal time, to watch one of my videos. If you enjoy this video, please feel free to like, share, comment, subscribe. Any support is truly appreciated. This scene from Dune Part 2, the arrival scene, followed by Paul's speech scene, might be two or a combination of my favorite scenes in recent cinema history. These scenes to me encapsulate everything about Dune and what Dune is truly about. I know this movie may be over talked about, over hyped, put up on a pedestal. I love this movie. This is one of my favorite movies of recent history. And I think that comes from my love of the book Dune. I've watched this scene so many times. One of the things that I picked up from this scene that I thought was just so cold, besides Paul's entrance, because that was a fire entrance. Everything about Paul coming in, arriving to the southern region, fire, just flames. Something that I picked up in this, and then in the following scene of his speech, people may have talked about this before. I'm coming from this because this is one of my personal favorite scenes. I've seen people talk about how perfect this scene is. I think it's perfect as well. It encapsulates so much of what Dune is, what I think the message behind Dune. One thing that I really picked up in this scene is the gap between fear and worship obviously isn't that far. Fear and worship are a lot closer. Fear and worship are used closer and more parallel to each other, especially in the idea of messiahs and blind faith. One of the ways that I think you really pick up on this is the reactions by the Fremen to Paul's arrival. If you look at these two guys' faces, it's a look of almost fear, anguish, and disgust, especially this guy. And one thing I noticed is a lot of the Fremen have their hands, or at least a few of them have their hands on their crysknife as Paul's arriving. Even though Paul is a savior, he's not a white savior, but he is a savior and a messiah to them. There's also a level of fear because Paul has taken the water of life. He's become something new. He's become, to a lot of people, he's become the Lisan al-Gaib at this point. That comes with a level of fear and understanding of things becoming a reality and worship possibly paying off. You really see that a lot in this scene. Now, I could be wrong. I think it's captured very, very well. If you look at the eyes of this guy right here in the middle and this guy right here on the right, you can see the way they're looking at Paul. They're looking at something in a almost reactionary, like a fear. Like if you saw like a bear coming towards you, you would react in this way as something approaching you. They're prepared, especially this guy in the middle. I think this guy in the middle captured it so well. That's what makes this scene so special. These extras playing Fremen are feeding off of the energy that Timothée is giving them, feeding off that energy, and they're giving the necessary energy back. It's captured well in this guy's face too. It's almost like a fight or flight reaction to Paul Atreides arriving, to Uso arriving, to the Muad'Dib arriving, to the Lisan al-Gaib arriving. They're not sure if they should fight this guy or if they should kind of accept him and nurture him. It's interesting to see those parallels between fear and worship. The fear turns into worship very quick. You see that especially when it comes to Paul's speech. You see it in Shani though. Shani is a different example of it. Shani fears what is going to happen to her people. Shani fears the next steps of Paul's evolution and the direction that Paul is going to take them in. You mostly see adulation, exhilaration, and worship in Stilgar's face, but there's like this slight moment where it's almost like Stilgar fears that everything that he wants and everything that he's desired is coming true. There's like a slight moment. You see it when Paul says there's nobody in this room that can take me. Everybody reacts. Everybody is ready to fight and everybody takes their knives out. To me, this guy right here is one of the best reactions to Paul. He thinks that he can take Paul, but Paul even mentions it. You are afraid. You're afraid that I might be the one. Paul amplifies that fear by using his prescience and seeing into this guy's past, seeing stuff that his grandmother had. You basically see Paul convert these people into believers through their fears. He talks to this guy about the nightmares that he has, and he converts them into a true believer. Even Jessica throughout the movie uses fear as a way to convert the Fremen into believers. These two scenes are so dope and they complement each other so well. And they complement the movie and the idea of Dune so well to me. I love these two scenes. I've watched those two scenes so many times. So many times. Another interesting conversation is the idea of religious psychosis. We've seen it become a bit of a buzzword. People using fear-mongering, prophecies, the idea of religious calamity to gain followings, but then unfortunately bad things may happen because they get overboard. They develop these followings, they develop this engagement, it builds them up, it puts them on a pedestal. We see that religious psychosis come out in the worst way sometimes. You also see that in cults. So religious psychosis has become a bit of a buzzword. You see that in The Fremen. Jessica uses fear-mongering to lift Paul up, to create this mythos, this idealism around Paul and around the prophecy. Would you consider Stilgar someone who suffers from religious psychosis? You see what Shani said. Shani said that he was insane. Stilgar was a true believer in Paul and the prophecy of the Lisan al-Gaib. Do the Fremen begin to suffer from religious psychosis after the introduction of Jessica and Paul into their culture? This conversation was a bit of a buzz conversation. Paul is not a white savior. He's a savior to a degree, but he's not even a true savior. He is a messiah, and he instills certain ideas and beliefs into the Fremen. I think that the Fremen do become cult-like, and some of them do suffer from religious psychosis. It could also be the control of the voice. You see the way in which Jessica used the voice. And I think that's a good thing, because that ties into the idea of fear and worship and their proximity, their connections, their parallels. In Dune Part 2, Jessica really only uses the voice in order to gain followers for Paul, gain more people to worship him, or to push the prophecy, the idea, the story of Paul forward. Those are really the only times that you see Jessica use the voice. She doesn't use it to make people just randomly do their bidding. She doesn't use it to make people fight each other. She uses it in the idea of pushing the prophecy forward, pushing the history forward. So the idea of religious psychosis does fall into Dune, and the timing is interesting because religious psychosis is becoming a buzzword now. People are talking about it a lot because of certain instances that we've had. I just think this is a fascinating conversation. Watching these two scenes over and over again, it really makes me see this. It makes me see the idea of fear-mongering, the idea of fear and worship being in close proximity, the idea of religious psychosis. And we've seen quite a few religious movies where they tackle into that in more supernatural ways, but we've seen them lately especially. It is fascinating to me. But there is another thing that I want to talk about real quick. Two more things that I want to talk about real quick. We really got to give Hans Zimmer his credit. I'm pretty sure people have been giving Hans Zimmer his credit, but he really deserves it. He truly cooked with the score, especially for those two scenes. Those two scenes do not have the impact that they have without Hans Zimmer's score. I think it's different. Arrival, the song Arrival, really kind of encapsulate this force coming forward. This force arriving and this force basically taking over. There's like a hinge of fear in there. It's a strong pounding sound. He cooked. He cooked. The other thing I wanted to ask is, I know that visually the sandworm coming up out of the ground, it looks amazing. It adds on to the gravitas, to the epicness of this scene. But one thing I thought is this a vision? And maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe I'm kind of going out there. But I wondered, is this a vision? Is this not Paul, but is this Leto? As cool as it was, as dope as it was, it didn't make sense that the sandworm would just come out of the ground like that. So I wondered if this is actually a vision. Because I've seen Quinn's Ideas talk about the idea that at the beginning of the movie, it's actually Leto that's speaking at the beginning of both movies. So I wonder if this is a vision of Leto and not Paul. Also, the robes are a little bit different. They're a little bit darker. This could be because of distance and what we're seeing, the shadows. Is this Leto and not Paul? Thank you so much for taking time to check out this video, check out my thoughts. Please let me know what you think. What you think about the idea of fear and worship, their proximity. You can even add the conversation to the idea of fear-mongering and religious psychosis. Is another thing that you could put in there as well. Interesting conversations. But please let me know what you think. Please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to check out this video. Hope you have a good one. Hope you're blessed.